The Mazda 3 has always been a little different than other cars in the class, and for 2025, I think Mazda may have doubled down. Sure, you may have heard about the tech updates, and still this turbo all-wheel drive model is one of the quickest cars in its class. But after spending some quality time with this Mazda, I think I've discovered its secret sauce, and it's nothing any spec sheet can show you or any feature list can tell you. And it's got something that no other car that can match at this price. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. And as we explore this Mazda 3, let's forget two things. One, let's forget about other compact sedans and the compromises that we have come to accept in the category as well. Let's forget for just a second that Mazda's just a little car company from Japan. And before we get into what this car is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. For 2025, nothing's changed mechanically, and that is a very good thing. The drivetrain is still top-notch. It's powered by a 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder that makes 250 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and 320 pounds of torque at 2,500 RPM on 93 octane. If you are a cheapskate, it makes 227 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and 310 pounds of torque on 87 octane. The transmission is still a 6-speed automatic. The all-wheel drive sends more torque to the rear axle than the non-turbo all-wheel drive. This does have GVC Plus or G vectoring control. Suspension's based around McPherson struts at the front, torsion beam at the rear, and if you think torsion beams are bad, leave a comment below and we'll have a conversation. Spring rates and damping rates are revised at the front to compensate for the additional weight of the turbo engine versus the non-turbo. Steering is electrically assisted and disc brakes all around. Wheels and tires are 18s. Curb weight is a tick under 3,400 pounds. Inside it is still very premium, but now we have the large infotainment screen as well as wireless CarPlay and Alexa integration. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Funny thing is, when I look at other cars on the road, what I find is some competitors are designing their cars like they're using Microsoft Paint from 1998, and Mazda's out here designing all of their vehicles like fine art. It's kind of like comparing your kid's stick figure art to the Mona Lisa. The fundamentals of the cockpit have not changed, thankfully. We've got a fantastic supportive seat, very comfortable. Plenty of adjustment. It's power here in this trim level. And then we're faced with this perfectly shaped and sized steering wheel. It encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3. And then I'm well set up with the pedals as well. Nice proper dead pedal to support your left leg in the corners. And otherwise, I'm very happy. Sit nice and low in this chassis as well. And I'm just seated perfectly here behind the wheel. Second level ergonomics are all traditional and modern. Mazda, very simple, straightforward, driver-centric. There's no learning curve here. There's nothing funny about where any of the controls are placed. And thankfully, there's a proper volume knob here. Not necessarily a fan of this infotainment controller. I use the system on CarPlay and it works absolutely perfect for me. The challenge is, of course, when I want to switch out of CarPlay and maybe listen to the radio. That is a little bit complicated using the controller, but otherwise, love the screen, love how it's displayed, and the system works exactly as promised. The instrumentation is perfectly clear and primarily analog. The center speedometer is digital, but the tach is analog, the fuel gauge and water temp, those are analog as well. And of course, you can get all the information you want out of that central digital screen, and love the way the information is presented here. For 2025, there are USB-C ports here. And as you can see, my phone is stowed. It is very happy here. There is a wireless charger here. And in terms of spaciousness, at least you and your front seat passenger have lots of room here. It is an airy and open cabin, lots of of width here. And again, these seats are very comfortable and no issues there. There's some storage under the armrest, lots of cup holders, whether it's here in front of the shifter or in the doors. I've heard some people complain that these cup holders aren't big enough for American drinks, but I gotta say, if you are trying to find a spot for your 64-ounce Mountain Dew, well, this is not the car for you, Bubba. Where space becomes a compromise is in the back seat. I can just fit behind myself in the seating position, and as most of you know, I like sitting close to the wheel as a proper driver should. Thankfully, the trunk is fairly spacious and the rear seats split and fold, so you can put all your stuff in here as you need, whether it's golf clubs or snowboards or bicycles, as I do. Since we're sitting here on the auto hold function, love that it has it. I really don't care that I have to switch it on every time I start up this Mazda 3. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard a rumor that Mazda benchmarked Lexus for the interior controls here. And if that's true, I'm not surprised. Everything here works perfectly and has a premium feel and touch to it. Fun fact, did you know this engine makes more torque than a BMW 330? Yes, indeed, it's true. Not that Mazda 3 owners would tell you at Cars and Coffee. No, just kidding. They'd probably tell you incessantly as if they were vegans or were into CrossFit. This is pretty quick for a little car. It'll do 0 to 60 in a few ticks under 6 seconds. That's pretty impressive. I don't know if there's anything else in the category that'll do this, and it does it so well, so seamlessly and flawlessly because of the way the entire drivetrain works. Delivers torque way low in the rev range, and then of course when you let it rev up to the top, it hits peak power. It's the best of both worlds. Modern turbos do this, and this is very well tuned. But what's more important is how well tuned the entire driveline is. This 6-speed automatic is so well sorted, so well matched to this engine. It's just perfection. To be fair, only on the hardest launches is there just a slight delay in torque transfer to that rear axle. But in day-to-day driving, anytime we're driving this, whether it's exiting corners or getting up to speed on the highway or even in the city, torque transfer seems instantaneous, but it is just in those extreme conditions where there's just a hint of a delay. On the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm doing something slightly incorrect. I might not know all of the secrets of this Mazda 3 with the turbo all-wheel drive drivetrain. Even though it's got an open diff at the front, we really don't have any crazy instances of torque steer. Again, only in those extreme conditions where the roads are rutted, for example, well, we have a little extra tug on the steering wheel, but that's really about it. It's pretty much banished from existence in this Mazda 3. Beyond the abundance of power and torque that this engine makes, really the highlight is the transmission. It shifts smoothly, quickly. Love the shift paddles as well when you do want to control the gearbox manually. And yes, there is indeed a sport mode, if you so desire, that changes throttle mapping as well as the transmission calibration, and it seems to work perfectly here. This thing is quick off the line. I just love that torque. It's so low in the rev range. You're never at a loss. You're kind of just wafting on this abundance of torque here. I think the only thing that's missing from this test is I really didn't get to try the all-wheel drive system in any low grip conditions. And that's something I'd love to do at some point soon. One thing I'm struck with this engine is that the noise is at a minimum, and I don't know if that's simply because the engine is so smooth inherently or they've done an excellent job with isolating that noise from the cabin, but otherwise you're really not experiencing any of that typical 4-cylinder harshness here. Just lean on that accelerator and we've got maximum torque. Acceleration is no problem, and it's just all smooth power delivery, and who doesn't love an abundance of power and torque? I know I do. No problem passing either. Gotta love the instant power here. It's fantastic. When it comes to how this drives and its dynamics, one of the highlights, and there are several, are the brakes. Brakes are awesome, very positive pedal, and it's very, very strong in terms of braking. As we go into the corners, I've got great control of the attitude of this Mazda 3 with that brake pedal. Just absolutely love it. The funny thing is, I'm not even driving in sport mode or shifting the gears manually. There's kind of no need. The drivetrain is so well calibrated for this kind of driving environment. When it comes to handling, there is no trouble here. This is where the Mazda 3 shines. This is just fantastic. The suspension soaks up all the bumps and keeps the tires in contact with the road surface. Get on the brakes, turn in. Got great confidence behind the wheel here. Just fantastic. Exiting the corner, really impressed. And, you know, lots of people love to complain about the fact that this car has torsion beam rear suspension, but I think you backyard engineers really don't know what you're talking about. This chassis is very well sorted. There aren't any unusual handling characteristics, whether you're on limit or otherwise. Very happy with the way this works. This corner's tough. It's off camber, no trouble exiting, and the suspension just does a fantastic job. And this road surface should highlight any bad habits, and this doesn't have any. With regard to steering, there's not a lot of feel or feedback here, and maybe I'd like a little bit more weight to the steering. It is strong on center, and I'm very happy with the steering otherwise. Thankfully, though, there is a fair bit of chassis feel here, so you can feel what's going on at each of the 4 contact patches. And speaking of the corner, this thing has no trouble carving a line, and it's really where this complete package comes together, is in the corners, and it does everything properly. I know some people complain that this is not a Mazda speed version of the 3, but the flip side of this coin is that the suspension is much more approachable than what they'd fit to a Mazda speed version of this car. It is very compliant. They allow the suspension to work and still will support you in the corners. It's great in the corners, and then when you're driving on the open road, it's very comfortable for you and your passengers. Done a great job just isolating road noise. There's not a lot of crash through here, and it's very, very quiet in this cabin. As I've said a million times in previous Mazda episodes, they know how to build and engineer cars for drivers, and they have really done it here. It's just a fantastically well-rounded compact sedan when it comes to its dynamics. Everything works together in harmony here. I think if other car companies were smart and wanted to improve their cars' handling, well, they should just poach Mazda's entire dynamics engineering team. How do you spec yours? Well, I have some thoughts, but thankfully it's not too difficult when it comes to speccing your Mazda 3. What you are looking at is a Premium Plus in the US or a GT here in Canada, finished in ceramic metallic paint. This one's also finished with the garnet red interior, which you can't get in a Premium Plus model in the United States. The last time I checked Reddit, they all complained that this car is too expensive, but you know what's too expensive? Maintaining a German car out of warranty. I heard that the fastest growing demographic of Mazda 3 buyers was former Audi owners because they got tired of telling their mechanics what a coil pack was. In the US, base price is $36,950 and $450 for the paint is an as-tested price of $37,400. In Canada, base price is $41,240 plus $595 for the paint for a total as-tested of $41,835. In terms of speccing yours, you really can't go wrong with the top trim with the turbo all-wheel drive and all of the features and luxuries of this Mazda 3. It is very much an all-around, do-everything compact sedan. As for me, I'd get mine in red, and I probably wouldn't go with the sedan. I would actually go with the hatch. I like the styling of that a little bit better, and I like the functionality of it for the way I would use my Mazda 3. My verdict, well, this is where it all comes together. Any manufacturer can add more tech and more power to their platform, but nobody does it quite as well as Mazda. They take a very holistic approach, and what we have here is a very cohesive, well-rounded, compact sedan. What really makes this Mazda 3 is how everything works together. The steering, the braking, the drivetrain, how the power gets to the ground, the suspension's ability to soak up bumps and give you confidence in the corners. It's not just that the steering is precise or that the suspension balances comfort and handling, it's how these elements work all together. It's the way the seat supports you perfectly through a corner, and the way the controls are weighted feels natural with the car's dynamics. This holistic approach, this perfect synchronization of all the elements is what separates this Mazda from everything else in the category, and it's why even with competitors offering maybe more space or more power, this Mazda 3 creates an experience that punches way above its price point. As they've made improvements for the 2025 model, they haven't diluted what Mazda is all about. They're not trying to be a budget alternative to luxury brands. They're creating something unique, a car that prioritizes the quality of the driving experience over the quantity of features and luxuries. I heard some people complain about Mazda trying too hard to be premium, but you know who else tried hard? Every single person who succeeded ever. And from my perspective, for all of the cars that I've driven in this category, there's nothing quite like this Mazda 3. What I love about Mazda is they spend a tremendous amount of time sorting the dynamics of their vehicles and the relationship between the driver and the machine when other car companies are out there trying to make their horns sound friendlier. It's kind of like comparing a brain surgeon to a paramedic who puts on a Band-Aid just right. And in a segment where some cars come off as a collection of compromises, this Mazda 3 presents itself from a single vision that's very well executed for drivers like us. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Mazda 3 sedan with the turbo all-wheel drive drivetrain. Hope you liked this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this video, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers, from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch, and Mazda still builds manuals. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time, and remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Mazda 3's. And since you've hung around this long, well, have a look at our last episode of the Mazda 3 with the manual gearbox, because that makes a different case about a compact Mazda, and I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks again for watching.